Hello and welcome to another edition of the Race Department Podcast. I'm Paul Glover, your good-looking host. You'd have to trust me on that. And join in the virtual RD studio. I'm just joined with two of my colleagues this time round. First up, we've got Danny. Danny, hello.
Hello, hello.
How are you faring in the world that we're currently living in?
Very well, very fine. No worries around here.
Keeping yourself busy with sim racing?
Trying to, yeah. And trying not to go too crazy by staying home too long. So finding the balance.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously you're following government guidelines and keeping at a distance and locking yourself away where appropriate. And second in the booth with us is Davide. Hello, Davide.
Ciao, 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 ciao.
Ciao, my friend. And how are you keeping in this world that we are currently in?
Keeping myself busy, trying to be productive and stuff.
I mean, we got to hurry up because, as you saw by the photo that I sent you guys on WhatsApp, I did some baking at the weekend.
Oh yeah, I saw, and it looked delicious.
And I can tell you this now, they taste delicious. So I'm sure, like you have with family and friends, you've done a little bit of FaceTime and also, a man that's now in his 40s, would you believe? I'm a young 40. My friends, a lot of my friends are married and got kids, and they've started online gaming again. So because they've got to do something to fill the time that they now have, because a lot of them aren't working, because I've got friends and mechanics and whatnot. So, so I decided to do a bit of baking because I phoned my brother the other day and he was eating a brownie. His fiance sent me the recipe and it was really easy, and I've got about half the tray remaining and they're in the freezer. So I'm trying not to eat them all because I don't want to get too overweight. But there we go.
Which is a serious risk during the quarantine.
Oh yeah, during the lockdown. I mean, where I'm sat right now recording, next to my PC, right behind me is my fridge. So the
proper
temptation
style.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, like, like the office I'm in, I call it an office, my gaming room, my study, whatever you want to call it, is right next to my kitchen. So again, like the apparatus to make something is right there. So yeah, it takes a lot of willpower.
Yeah.
And I also at the weekend, I don't know if I probably mentioned this before, but I recently built a new PC. And when I bought that PC, I bought some fans, and it turns out they were too big for the case. So I put those fans in my old PC and took the other ones out of the old PC and put them in my new PC, because those ones are 120 mil, is where the other ones are 140. And I've done a bit of messing around and reconfiguration, and but I'm still trying to get some lighting to work in my new PC that I can't get to work on my Corsair fans. And so I'm trying to little jobs I've been putting off, I've been trying to complete like that. And have you guys done anything similar?
Yeah, now there are no excuses, to be honest. And I look at all the things I've always postponed, and I'm like, fuck, now I need to do this, now I need to do that.
Yeah, no, indeed. As well as much as I want to do sim racing all the time or gaming, I got tasks that I need to do. I cleaned the windows at the weekend as well before I did some baking. I mean, I'm going crazy. What about you, Davide? Have you been ticking off any tasks?
Well, during the first couple of weeks in quarantine, I didn't do much, and I was starting to get crazy. We are not used to do nothing all day. It kind of makes you crazy. So I decided to do something that I always wanted to do but never actually did properly, and I started to learn German.
Oh wow, you're learning a language. Oh, nice.
Yeah. I'm half through the book. And let's hope. It's difficult because it's like when I was studying English. You learn the structures of the sentences, the various rules and everything, how the language works. But then you find yourself incapable of speaking because you have no vocabulary. That's the problem when you learn a language. You have no vocabulary at all. That's the hardest part. I wish you could do like in Matrix that you download into your brain the entire vocabulary. Yeah. That's the annoying part of learning a new language.
I haven't learned a language since school, but yeah, kudos to you. I mean, you're using your time very, very wisely, and I hope our listeners are too, and keeping themselves and their loved ones safe. It is a weird world that we're living in. So, because we're living in this weird world, I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but we were having a chat earlier on about the podcast, and I said, let's just do a short one this week, 30 to 45 minutes. Talking about one topic, because I love listening to podcasts, but because I'm not commuting, I'm not listening to them as much as I normally would be, and because I don't know what it is, but I don't necessarily enjoy listening to a podcast while I'm at home. I like to be out and about, which I'm not really doing, and when I exercise, I will listen to music. So I thought we'd do something a little bit different this week and just talk about one topic, and we'll try and do something a little bit sooner than every 2 weeks, and try and just sort of drip feed, because everybody and their mum and their uncle and their granddad seems to suddenly be releasing podcasts while everybody's in lockdown. So I'm sure you guys have got enough to listen to. So we thought we'd do the opposite and just trim back a little bit. So we are in this lockdown worldwide at the moment, in America, so in across Europe, in Africa, in all different nations. So, and one of the positives as regards to sim racing fans is the recent upsurge in esports. I think you should be allowed to call them esports, because they're, for instance, we've had the Formula One drivers getting involved in esports with F1 2019. We're completely those of you who may follow him on Twitch and YouTube, Lando Norris, who is probably my favourite Formula 1 driver of the current grid at the moment. I think
probably.
Well, yeah.
Just
okay.
in case nobody
to be fair to them, Carlos Sainz is number 2 for me at the moment. I've never loved a Spanish driver so much, if I'm being totally honest. So I could easily sit down and just chat to that lad. So he seems like a really nice guy, and he seems a lot like his dad, and his dad seems pretty down to earth as well, Carlos Sainz Senior. So we've seen a bit of a rise, haven't we, guys, in the amount of esports. So let's start there first. At the moment, we haven't got a real. First off, let me the first question for you: are you missing your real motorsport?
I was, until I started until I started to watch one of these esports events that were mixing sim racers and real drivers. And then I noticed that actually no.
So since you started watching the esports, so what predominantly what motorsport do you watch?
I'm a big fan of GT cars, and I used to watch a lot of the Blancpain, which is now the GT World Challenge.
Yeah,
Europe,
that's
I guess.
right.
And
It's called that. Yeah, I pointed that out to you the other day. Yeah, very good.
And they came up with an event that was mixing both some of their drivers that normally run that championship, and then a few like invited sim racers and other sim racers that qualified online through a hot lap session.
Yeah,
and they got the guy that commentates the real races. They got him on board to commentate for this sim racing charity coronavirus event.
Yeah.
And it sounded just like it was the same voice. It was so familiar. It was at Monza. The cars were the same, and it just felt like, even though I knew it was a game, the atmosphere was the same. So I didn't miss that it was not a real event. For me, it was just as good.
Yeah. What about you, Davide? You been missing your motorsport?
I must say that I'm not particularly missing the races, also because lately I've been able to follow with a certain constance only the F1 races. I just wish that these esports races were a bit more organized, because right now it seems like they are trying to do seasons, championships, and so on and so forth. But probably they do not actually know how to structure the season itself, how to manage the various races, and so these seasons are in some cases aren't happening, in other cases are happening, but with some problems and some issues. So maybe I think they might just do, single races without pretending to do a virtual season.
I kind of feel like you're going off a tangent there, both of you actually. The question is, are you missing your motorsport? Are you fundamentally missing, the real thing at the moment?
No.
No.
Okay. So touching on the point you just said there, Davide, about the structure of it. It's funny, I was having a conversation with Mr. Jeffrey the other day, who sadly can't be here tonight because he's not feeling too well. So get well soon, Paul. It's not, I don't think it's coronavirus, don't panic.
And save us from the other Paul, please.
Yeah. 2 Europeans against 1 Brit. We can see how this is going. So anyway, I've just completely lost my train of thought. But structure. So suddenly everybody and their dog is trying to get esports on the ground, off the ground, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. But I quite like what SRO did, to be honest with you. And out of all the I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag pretty early here. It wasn't the plan, but because you mentioned it, Danny, that was my favourite esport event yet. And you're right. And they had Ben Costiglianos. I'm terrible at pronouncing his surname, so sorry about that, Ben, if you listen. Who I follow on Twitter and is involved in a lot of esports. So he was one of the co-commentators, and then they had the other 2 main commentators who normally do, the what was known as the Blank Bands series up until recently. And the quality of the racing was really good, but what I also liked was the event, because it was over. It was like 2 qualifying races to a final. Is when at RD, where we try and organise a league or any other leagues that occur across the spectrum that is the internet, whether that, the amount of leagues that go on is ridiculous. Some small, some large. That's a commitment for everybody to be there for, say, a number of weeks on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday at a certain time. As where if you have an event like on a Saturday afternoon, for instance, which is what the SRO did, or was it Sunday? I can't remember which. I think it might have been a Saturday. It's over and done with, and I quite like that. And as a viewer, it's less commitment from me as well. What are your thoughts, Danny and Davide, on that kind of model going forward? If people just announce like an event that lasted maybe 2 or 3 hours on an afternoon.
Yeah, I think that honestly, continuing on the train of thought that I had before, it's maybe the best thing, doing this kind of organizing these kind of races without.
From a driver perspective, Davide, right? So if you're signing up to a league, you've then got to look at your diary X amount of time ahead. And if you can't make a certain race, you can't compete. But if it's just a one-off event.
Exactly. Because pretending to do an entire season, of course, virtual season, without having a previous background, the necessary know-how to run it can be counterproductive. It is just better to make, as we were saying, one-off races, single races for people and real drivers to have fun and actually be able to take part, because with these seasons you can see that many times not all of the real drivers from the real season compete or are able to take part. Instead, with a one-off race, you can talk with your drivers and find a date where you can be able to have all of them together, which is much more interesting. It's less interesting to have a race with just 4, 5, 6 of the actual drivers.
Yeah, and you notice like easily, at least in some leagues, you see people that eventually start to drop away, or if they find hard to get the commitment throughout the whole thing. And one-offs races, it's all about that one thing. It's a bit like in the old days, there used to be non-championship Formula One races. They were just like one-offs for people to go and just race. And some drivers that were not part of the championship would show up, and some others were from other championships, and they would make one-off appearances, and it would still be good racing, because at the end of the day, when people go racing, they do want to do their best and win, because they cannot play the points game or anything. They have to give everything for that one race. So normally the racing comes out good. So I think it's also a win-win there.
Yeah, people are more willing to take risk, aren't they? If it's a one-off event, because if it's a championship event, people are thinking about the long game. I mean, what I liked about, I'll be honest, I don't really think I watched the SRO qualifying races. I only really watched the final, which I think was an hour race, if I recall. And I'm not sure how long the qualifying races were. But what I loved is, because people went through that qualifying races like they did, it meant that the quality rose to the top, and there was some, so Danny's telling me that there were 1 hour quali races. So
yeah, there were also.
So yeah, I mean that's a lot of dedication, not just from the drivers, but from the viewer as well. But I think it's better than having to commit to weekends. And the best thing about it was for charity, and it was just a really robust production. And I thought that there were certain elements that they had some technical hitches, but these are things when you're doing things over the internet rather than on a site. You are going to have those issues that are going to occur due to a packet being dropped here or there. And I thought it was really, really good fun. And the only thing for me though is sometimes that takes you away from because it, like you say, Davide, it was kind of real like and with the commentators, but then every so often the cars would move in a really strange way. Over certain bumps, and it just take you away from that illusion a little bit. It breaks the
how do you call it in theater and movies, the
third wall, the kind of the
more or less. It breaks the illusion of that being an actual race.
Yes, it does a little bit. Yeah, and it's just, it's only a minor thing, but it's there. But if we turn our attention to F1 2019, which is more of an arcade game and has been running by the guys at Formula One, and it's using the same studio that we've seen represented in their esports series, it's carnage. Like, the racing's carnage. I mean, even from the professionals, except if you're Charles Leclerc and you start pole and that's it, you're gone. Oh, I just hit my mic stand. Oh, sorry about that. But behind him is absolute mayhem.
It's a combination of different factors. From one side, the actual game or sim that, as you were saying, might be losing or dropping some packets here or there, or not being properly stable. And on the other side, you must not forget that these real drivers, while being, real, actual, professional sport drivers, most of them have never touched a sim rig or a sim, so they're not used to driving in a sim, and they spin like every one of us did in his or her first races. So you have a combination of these different factors.
I mean, they even have Johnny Herbert racing, which makes me laugh, and he's normally the first one to spin. Danny, have you watched any of the F1 content?
I've watched a little bit of this. There was a one lap knockout a few days ago, maybe yesterday, I don't know, where two drivers, either real life drivers or just YouTubers or sim racers, would go head to head for one lap on different races, and there was a tournament of 16 with knockouts. So, but I don't know. I didn't like the format, so I didn't really stick to it, and I don't know. The SRO one felt like, okay, it's a 1 hour race, like it's a one full stint, okay. But the other ones, the F1 ones, I couldn't really stick to.
Well, the F1 race that occurred on Sunday evening, it's now Tuesday, was a half distance race of 50%. But the first one they tried to do, they cut it to 25% because drivers kept having technical issues connecting to the game. So they had to fill the air on their broadcast for quite some time, and they announced that they were changing the distance of the race. And then this week, for whatever reason, Lando Norris keeps having issues with F1 2019, which maybe is the game, I don't know, but everyone else seems to be able to connect. But I guess what's interesting is like the likes of Charles Leclerc now is simming. Lando Norris is, as we know, I've mentioned him already, has been simming for quite some time. And there are other drivers that have suddenly started. So George Russell, and there was something about him taking his top off that I think some people have been going crazy about. I could only imagine it was the fairest sex doing that.
Sorry, what was he taking off?
Yeah, apparently, like, people were trying to get him to take his top off. So it apparently happened in a stream, and while they were practicing, and all of the drivers at the same time were practicing and streaming on Twitch. So, you know, what's really funny is you got Charles Leclerc basically said, "Am I streaming?" Like he you know, like he just didn't know. And then his brother Arthur, it's spelled Arthur, but it's pronounced Arthur, I believe, was also streaming as well. So you've got all, you know, suddenly these people that have never come across, and even Nicholas Latifi, who I think is now driving for Williams, isn't he, in F1? We haven't seen him yet. Yeah. He's streaming as well, you know. So, and they're all meeting together and practicing and all in the same Discord channel and all that malarkey. And you know, and I think for them, what it allows them to do is connect with the fans a lot more. Makes them more reachable, attainable, perhaps is probably the word I'm looking for. A bit more down to earth as well, because the conversations they were and Alex Albon as well, was also involved. I don't think he was streaming. I couldn't work out if he had a Twitch account or not, but he was there as well.
There was Giovinazzi too. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right. And
I think that they chose the younger drivers among the current roster. Maybe, as you were saying, you know, to try and link to the audience more. After all, it's not a secret that the F1 audience's numbers are going a bit down. So maybe, you know, this is also a marketing strategy to try.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if I agree with that so much.
I mean, because why, Giovinazzi, Albon, Leclerc, and not Ricciardo or, Vettel, Rosberg?
I know Carlos Sainz sim races, so I'm surprised to not see him take part.
Maybe because they have kids at home to take care of and spend time with. That's probably also a factor. Could be.
The
older
true.
drivers.
Yeah. I know that. Who was it? Forget his name. Grosjean, Romain Grosjean. He recently got a SimLab rig, which he posted on his Instagram account, and I forwarded it to you guys earlier on. But if you notice in the background, he already has a rig, which I noticed has Fanatec V3 pedal, so he looks like he's upgrading. One in the background looks like a play seat or a similar brand. So he's going the upgrade route. It looks like he's got a CSW 2.5 in the background as well. Yes, Davide.
A quick question that came to my mind just now.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that all of these drivers from both F1 and other series that are now getting into sim racing are going to stick with it after this crisis is gone?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the topics I kind of want to get to is what happens when things go back to normal. So I think we'll pick that up later. It's a really good question, but I think we want to kind of just cover off. I think we kind of be jumping ahead, but it's definitely a question that I want to get to.
Yeah, I make all the good questions, so if you need,
you don't.
If you need another
rubbish.
one, just ask.
I mean, I already had it in my head, so you basically just stole it.
But I have it earlier than you. So
I wish I had a mute button. So we talked about I mean, it's good to see these racers getting involved, and I know, for instance. Also, Nicholas Hamilton was taking part, I think, in the F1 one as well. He was taking part in something, but I know that Lewis and Nicholas have done F1 racing over the years because it was covered by the BBC in the UK when he went round. I think they went round Lewis's house and his brother was there. There was sim racing against each other. Another championship. I'm just trying to find the words there. Another championship that's gone into the esport arena is Indycar. Now, Indycar is well supported by iRacing, isn't it? But this is all the drivers. This is a big difference. This is getting all the Indycar drivers.
Yeah. I think that at the moment is the best virtual race. The best virtual series supported at the moment.
Yeah, Danny.
Well, actually, this kind of went under my radar, but I would be actually interested to watch as well. So I'll keep an eye on this. What I wanted to say was that there was also a hybrid version of the WTCR. So there's on Race Room, there's been a few races with both sim racers and real WTCR drivers like Thiago Monteiro and Jan Erlaché, Norbert Michelitz, and there were quite a few real WTCR drivers. They made it like a little quick cup, let's say. I think it was 3 or 4 races, but it was all throughout the day, race after race after race. They had like a mini championship. So, and that's of course a bit more easy to follow, at least parts of, because the races were 25 minutes. So that one's been also on.
What I find interesting is that, even Sky Sports in the UK on their, I think they broadcast it on the Sky Sports F1 channel, but then once they've been broadcast, they're then putting them up on their YouTube channel, and even I saw that they uploaded the IndyCar one. They did, which has had 12,000 views, which is uploaded 2 days ago. And the F1 ones only had half that, and it was uploaded a day ago, so it's probably on about par. But it's a different world that we're living in now. Going back to what Davide said about the IndyCar one, I have to agree. I think it's the best of the bunch of like the in that respect, where it's got the real drivers. Rosenquist, all of them, Power. Even Robert Wickens is getting involved, who's the guy that had the bad crash in IndyCar last year, was it? And he's on the road to recovery, but unfortunately his original rig that was supposed to make its way to him, he got kind of let down, and somebody else has stepped in. So he got his rig the other day. I know he's been practicing, which is really good to see. But also what I liked about it was, again, a bit like the SRO series, they had the real commentators, and also because it's in iRacing, it had all like the overlay displays and the driver pictures and things. So it was really like a real TV broadcast. And also the last round, they're going to race at any track that's not in an IndyCar series. So, and I think they're going to do it via votes as well. So nice. I'm not sure if it was going to be they weren't too sure whether it was going to be a driver vote or a viewer vote, but you could technically have IndyCar at Spa if the track's in iRacing, which I don't race iRacing, but I'm being told it's good at the moment.
Yeah, it is
I'm being
there,
told by a friend of mine.
Spies there.
Sorry?
Spies on iRacing,
Any?
yep. The Spa circuit is on iRacing.
Oh, is it? Okay, thank you. I didn't catch what you said the first time around. So, you could have IndyCar at a track we've never seen IndyCar before, and that strikes me as quite interesting. Quite an interesting thing to do.
Yeah, it's a really nice idea, and that's why we were saying that it's the best support. That not only because they have all or almost all of the drivers, real drivers competing. The platform is stable because you can say what you want about. I do not drive iRacing neither, so I know that iRacers you are used to complain to the tire model, but I can comment on that. But for sure, you can say that is a really rock solid stable for online races, and these cool ideas are really the cherry on top to have these drivers race on Spa or whatever other track people vote on. It's really cool. It's the other series should look at what they are doing and try.
Yeah, but I think the difference is that they've got that available to them. So if you look at like Assetto Corsa Competizione, it's a series-based game, so it's only going to have tracks that are in that series. Same with F1 2019, and the fact that IndyCar licensed is in iRacing platform gives them that option to, it opens that door, so to speak, doesn't it? So,
sure, you're right. Yeah,
unfortunately, other series are not in that in that place, unfortunately. So, and talking about F1 and IndyCar, and they're being picked up by like in America, NBC Sports are broadcasting the IndyCar as they normally would if it was the real deal. So, it's an interesting thing. I mean. We talked about before we started recording, I wanted to touch on series that are kind of missing out on an esports. I mean, could you do a rally one perhaps? Davide?
Sorry if I just take a little departure, but I promise it will be small. While you were saying that they are broadcasting these races and using most of the times also the real commentators and so on, and broadcasting them on TV. I think that it's. No matter the sim or the actual race, it's a good way to let people know and understand what sim racing is, or in general competitive gaming. Because, for example, here in Italy, the news that during the Olympics that were supposed to be held this year in Japan.
Yeah.
One of the category would have been competitive gaming. There were a lot of statements like, "Oh, they're gonna play Mario Kart and stupid things." Yeah, a gold medal for Mario Kart racing and this stuff. Instead, maybe this is the right opportunity to show people that gaming is gaming. It's not real life, but it's a long way ahead and different from arcade games of the 90s. So just sorry for the
it's fine.
departure.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when you talk about, I think we touched on this in a recent podcast, didn't we? About talking about sim racing. There is a certain view, isn't there, that gaming or whatever it may be, because when you use the word esports, we immediately associate that with sim racing, but there's other esports out there.
Yeah.
Counter-Strike and Fortnite and
Dota.
God knows what. There's so many games that have an esports series now, which are all being hit by the coronavirus and everybody having to stay indoors. But I had no idea there was gaming at the Japanese Olympics. I'd not heard that.
Yeah, there were supposed to be held some competitive gaming sessions, and it would have been the first time, and it was the right time because Japan is a cradle of gaming, of the gaming industry. They're really ahead in that department, so it fit. Sorry.
Yeah. So, going back to what I was saying before, then before we took that slight diversion, which was what was I saying before we took that slight?
The sport that I've been missing out of.
Oh
not
yes,
having their own,
thank you. That's what, so we look at rally. Rally isn't doing anything right now that I've seen, and I don't think really, Dirt 1, Dirt 2, or any of the rally games out there are kind of set up to do any kind of broadcast. Would I be right?
Well, I think so. Go, Danny. Go.
It's also not really the same kind of. It's not a sport that is that easy to expose as an entertainment
it's
thing
not.
to
You're
sell.
right.
So it's a bit harder to make it entertaining, as I guess.
Yeah, one that that it is a sport that I love is British touring cars. Probably don't watch it as much as I should do, but they're probably sitting there now wishing they were in a game of some description. Whether being the likes of iRacing, or I think Project Cars 2 perhaps might have a couple of touring cars, but obviously World Touring Cars are in Race Room, which you touched on, Danny. Is there any other series that you think would be sitting there now wishing they had an esports platform?
That's hard to.
The supercars, they might. I don't know if they just use the supercar in iRacing, because I know there are a few quite big leagues there, so they might have jumped on that one. But the BTCC is.
I have seen a supercars one somewhere. I was digging around the internet the other day. I did come across a supercars one. Yeah, I mean, British touring cars for me is one that I would definitely think that would be sitting there wishing they'd had one. I mean, you got the new MotoGP game coming out soon, but it's not quite the same, is it?
Yeah, I think that it's more of a problem for those national series that have an audience, maybe sometimes even international, like the British touring cars, but still, because they are at their core a national series, they do not get the same attention sim-wise as international series.
DTM haven't announced one, have they? I've not seen it. They're in Race Room, aren't they? DTM, right?
Yeah, they should have a good platform with Race Room, but I haven't seen any racing, to be honest. Any sim racing, official series stuff. No, that's true.
Which I'm really surprised about.
Considering that
it has availability, doesn't
basically.
It?
So.
Yeah, I'm really.
Yeah.
So they're kind of missing out on that. I think.
Honestly, Paul, going back to the rally, to the rally suggestion, I think that as Danny was saying, it's a different kind of racing, but especially because in rallying. Apart from rallycross, in rally you race in a certain sense alone on the track. You do your stage and you go to the next one until you're done. And for competitive racing, I think that it is more spectacular to have multiple cars, battling one another. So probably that's a big. The big problem with trying to do something esport wise with rallies, rally sims.
Yeah, I get from a viewership point of view, rally isn't necessarily as entertaining for others because you just got one car on the route to break the time. But I mean, when you watch rally, I'm always impressed by their speed. And the control as they go across different types of surface
have you ever noticed that that kind of feeling that you have when you watch rally cars that they seem like they are literally flying like spaceships in the track. It isn't replicated like that in rally games. It doesn't feel the same when you watch a replay. It doesn't feel the same in sims. I don't know why, but reality in this case is much more much more interesting and addicting to watch than seems. I don't know why it happens, but
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, I think you're right. It doesn't seem to have the same kind of impact, which is probably why there isn't one. But even so, I do, just taking it away from the scenario in now, I'm sure that there are fans people who are fans of Dirt Rally who play it religiously, who would love the ability to be able to quickly run an event within the game, and be able to broadcast that, because I think it is lacking that.
Yeah. Even though you have to remember that if the rally series will organize something, it will be on the WRC game and not on the Dirt Rally.
Yeah, of course.
So but
even still, I mean, nothing to stop Dirt Rally, Codemasters, developing a platform that would allow somebody to host an event, and then you go. And everybody can watch the others as they compete, and then it's their go, and it just, it would be. I think that would add an element to the game. Anyway, going off on a bit of a tangent. I'm conscious we're already up to the 40-minute mark, and there was you thinking we weren't going to do 30 minutes.
Let's do 3 hours.
It never works.
Let's do 3 hours straight.
Anyway, my next point is what happens next. So, what happened? We got all these. These Formula One stars, we've got Indycar stars, we've got other, guys from the world of GT cars and other sports. And what happens when they go back to their day job? Because I think we've got to understand now is, like, for instance, I've got so much time on my hands to do with race department. I'm having discussions about broadcasting stuff at the moment. Doing some testing with Paul on that. And just making sure things are slick and working together and understanding what we can and what we can't do. And, I still work in my normal job, but I'm working from home at the moment. And I'm sure many are in the same position. And this is what these F1 drivers and these IndyCar drivers, they're all working from home, if you think about it. What happens when we go back to a normal world? Is this just a bubble? Or do you think it will wake some people up and maybe they'll run potentially an esports series alongside the real F1 series, and would they do it? Would they continue to do it remotely like they are now, or do you think it will go back to more like the F1 esports that they do? I think it's the Gfinity Arena in London. What are your thoughts? Where do you think this is going to lead to? What do you predict?
Well, I think this is going to be, like, if you mentioned bubble, I think it's going to be some sort of, let's say, for fear of not being too aggressive here, an infected bubble, which means people, once everything is over, the drivers will have to go back to their simulators, to their training, to their real races.
Yeah.
But and everybody else to their
There's
jobs.
nothing to stop them to still
but they've
stream
been exposed to it now. They've seen it. They've tried it themselves at home. They raced their friends, their racing competitors online. Yeah. So I'm sure many of them will keep going back to it. Of course, maybe some of them, and I guess most of them, sporadically. But definitely a lot more will be involved, on and off at least, for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Davide? What do you predict?
Yeah, I think that for what it concerns series and championships, they will probably do not happen because first of all, the drivers will be busy with the real driving, and secondly, because the disorder shown by most of those of these virtual series means that probably when everything is back under control and they can race the actual cars, they will not want to touch the virtual ones. But as Danny was saying, probably for what it concerns the drivers, they will be busy with the real driving, but during the off-season, it is probable that they will continue sim racing to train and keep sharp, like some of them are already doing, like, for example, Verstappen.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't even touched on Verstappen. He does a lot of sim racing on iRacing and is often competing against the likes of Lando Norris. They both seem to love iRacing. I haven't tried it, so I don't have any time to try another platform or another game. I just don't have the. Well, you could argue I do now, but but I don't. I'm loving ACC far too much at the moment. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think it has kind of... I mean, I don't know, for instance, I don't know if Charles Leclerc has always been a sim racer. I mean, he's of that generation that would have grown up with consoles, as where Jenson Button, when he started racing, they were talking about this the other day because he took part in an event I watched, and he also took part in the F1 one as well, is that he got introduced, sims came in later in his career. So, the sims that they have where they're training back at camp, at McLaren or at Ferrari or wherever, they're not been around that long. And they came in towards the latter part of his, but with the likes of George Russell and Alex Albon and so forth, there's something they've probably been doing. Whether now it's just they're taking it online. I got the impression that because George Russell kind of Instagrammed or tweeted something, and about his new rig. So I didn't know if it was all new or whether he had. But it's only a good thing. And going back to, I forget which one made the comment about promoting these, with F1 and NBC and so forth in each country, picking up these broadcasts and broadcasting them to an audience that would normally watch real motorsport and open their eyes to it, may bring more people in and so forth, and people buying, Logitech 29s and 27s or Fanatec equipment or Huskenfeld pedals, and because some people will have just so much money they can throw at it and others not so much, different budgets. I think there'll be some residual from this. A residual, that's a good word, I like that one. Obviously it is a bubble. I think it will fade away, but I also think it will kind of wake some people up. Unfortunately, the people that it wakes up are the people with money, so it tends to go for more the elitist, the aliens of sim racing. At Race Department, we're more about your average racer, I would argue. We got the odd alien that competes, but we want to be a platform for all. We don't want to be elitist. I'm not quick by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not consistent either.
Yeah, we know that.
All right. Take that in. But, I've been hosting some awesome races on Saturdays at Race Department in a set of course of Sicilione. And this week we're at Barcelona for an hour and a half race. And, and to read the comments that people have been posting recently, one was like, I'm really enjoying these events. People are respectful. And that's what you get generally in an organised event. And that's what we're seeing in a lot of the esports events. I think, going back to the SRO one very briefly, the thing that upset me about that was the lack of viewers, because, that's one thing F1 has over the rest is, it has a huge audience. And when you see the likes of Lando Norris getting 70,000 viewers, and then the F1 channel has got another 20,000 viewers, and I can imagine people have got the F1 channel here on the left side of their screen, and they've got Lando Norris' stream here, and then on another monitor they've probably got George Russell. So they're able to watch the race from different perspectives, which is something you can't do on an F1 broadcast so well. You can do it with F1 TV, I believe, but I don't know if you can have multiples open. We don't have F1 TV in the UK because Sky Sports have the rights to broadcast over here. So that's not an offer live. But I know you can switch different onboard cameras, but I don't know if you can have different multitudes of feeds at the same time, So that's something the virtual world can give you over the real life world. So, yeah, it's an interesting time at the moment. And I'm intrigued to see where it's going to end, and if we're going to see other series, going back to British touring cars now, whether they're suddenly going to appear in a platform or get a licensed game. Hopefully one that's, sim-like. I mean, could you imagine if Kunos did a British touring car game? Oh, I'd love that. I think I'd have to wet myself. I think that's how excited I'd be for that. But could you imagine if that happened? But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if there's any other series out there that, I know we got one forum member that's always bang on about Super Trucks. I'm sure they'd love a Super Trucks esports series. I'm sure there are other listeners that have, a fondness for other series out there that would, they probably think, even like automobilista. I mean, the Mini's in that. I mean, Mini's still race now, normally as like a support race, but even like a little afternoon challenge in those would be some great racing. You wouldn't necessarily get the viewership, but I think it'd be entertaining at least. But yeah, an interesting world we're living in now, and let's see where this all ends up, and hopefully these people that are coming in with their millions of pounds that have backing and don't ruin it, but don't dilute it as such. Make it accessible, bring in a new audience, and hopefully grows the sim racing that we love and enjoy. Yeah.
Well said. Bravo.
Clap.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I should be Prime Minister, shouldn't I?
Yeah, you should run for Prime Minister.
Yes, please. This country needs it. You know it.
Right. So just before we bring this podcast to a close, we're heading towards the hour. Just a few things we want to just mention. Stefano leaves Kunos. Give us the 30 seconds on that, Davide.
Stefano.
Yeah. Stefano. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I read Stefano, but I don't know why. Were you surprised by that, both of you?
Yeah, I must say I did, because I always associated Stefano with Kunos.
Yeah.
It was his studio, and it was named after his cat, and he was with Marco, the core foundation of everything we had from them in the last years. So Netcar Pro and Assetto Corsa Competizione. And it was strange. It was weird, but I can understand that he wants to try new challenges.
Yeah.
He wants to do something new. Wants to learn something new about himself. So I must say
see
that
where he turns up. What are your thoughts, Danny?
Maybe he's gone to do your BTCC game.
Yeah. Oh, could you imagine? Oh, the excitement! don't say things like that, and you'll get me overexcited. MotoGP 20 is on its way soon. Also, kudos to Mercedes, have helped up with the coronavirus fight. They've with the help of London University in the university in the UK. Actually, I don't know if they were London at all. Have developed. Improved the device and are building those. So, if you haven't seen it, there's an article on Race Department about a game that's come out or coming out called the Art of Rally, which is a top-down kind of indie rally game. It looks a bit different, looks fun. I'm going to check that out. I know that the guys here have checked it out already. That looks
really
interesting.
Cool.
Yeah,
So,
very cool game.
Yeah, I used to play top-down games back in the 90s when you guys probably weren't even born. I
was born.
Well, you probably born late 90s, weren't you?
No, in the 1990.
I'm
right,
an 89
okay.
guy, so I'm still from the 80s
right,
even.
Okay, well, you would have been born, but you wouldn't know about them. But I was playing them, so because I was 10 by the time you were born, Davide. So there you go.
You're very old.
I know, I'm very old. Thank you. I can't wait to meet you and slap you around that Italian face. Right. And then some other worthy mentions. AMS2. The amount of updates coming out for that at the moment from Razer. I think we're up to update 6 now. 5 or 6. They keep coming out regularly. So I haven't played it for a while. I played it once. I'll go back to it in a bit. iRacing update. The aero screen for Indycar is available. R Factor 2 updates are coming. There's a new broadcasting overlay, which gets me genuinely excited about. I think some of the streams out there are testing it, and it looks good. So I can't wait to get my hands on that. And there's also been an American Truck Colorado update. Other news, we are still planning on doing a podcast race. I kind of alluded to some testing that I've been doing, so watch this space with Paul and somebody else. We're we're trying to improve a few things before we commit to that. So sorry for the continued delay. I know we're in a prime time at the moment to get that done because everybody's around. So we will get that done, I promise, by the time this coronavirus lockdown is over. If you are at Loose End, come and check out our racing club events. These are social events for people who are fast, people who are slow, people who are just average like myself. Great events. You've got to be a premium member. They are good. We are getting some really good numbers at the moment because there's so many people around at Loose Ends, which is only a good thing. I'm getting 40 races in my events at the moment, and I hope to keep that going. We promote good, fair racing. As long as you follow the rules, you're in a good place. I would tell you about our YouTube videos and our Twitch and so forth, but there is nothing happening on those at the moment. But don't forget to follow us on Instagram. You search for Race Department, Twitter at Race Department, and Facebook for Race Department. Davide.
Yeah, I wanted to say just that because we are trying to do this shorter podcast, maybe if the listeners themselves want to suggest a brief topic they want us to discuss about, we can touch that. So
yeah, good idea.
We do something that they actually want, since, as you were saying, it is a bit harder to listen to podcasts now.
Yeah, it is. And also the news, I suspect a lot of the news is going to dry up at some point as well. These days, I'd imagine developers all tend to work from home. But there will still be some issues. I mean, mainly probably around hardware and stuff like that. But any topics that you'd like us to touch on, then you can always tweet us, message us, DM us on Twitter or Facebook us, or post on the forums. We'll take them by any means whatsoever. So if you've got something you think was worth talking about and want to hear our point of view on, do let us know. We will try and line up some guests. People to join us on the podcast as well to add a bit of variety, but we're here for you in this time of need. Any final words from my two cohorts this week?
Well, open to all suggestions. Let's just keep it sim racing and motorsport related.
Yes. Baking's probably pushing the boundaries a little bit.
It is good, but
well, I want to tell our listeners what I've been getting up to. I can't do much else, can I? I'm stuck in the house.
I agree with Danny. Guys, dear listeners, stick with the sim racing topics because Paul has no private personal life. He has no friends, so he doesn't have much to talk about. So sim racing, please.
Damn, you're on your own today, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna suffer it next pod.
I think someone's gonna get the drop from the podcast soon.
Yeah.
I can feel it in my waters.
I was just saying. I know I'm gonna suffer it next pod. I'm gonna pay for this.
Can you imagine when we meet face to face? Oh my god!
Imagine David is like 2 meters tall. I don't know.
Yeah, 2 meters tall and 150 kilos.
Size is only a number. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, as they say. Well, thank you, dear listeners, for tuning into the podcast. Hope you've enjoyed our rambling for just under an hour. Danny, my friend, thank you for joining.
Thanks for having us.
You're most welcome. And Davide, the Italian stallion, thank you once again.
Thank you, mate. It was fun.
It was fun. A little bit of different format this week. So thank you for downloading. If you have enjoyed, please leave us a review. Tell your friends, they've got nothing else to do right now, so they might as well listen to this. And on a serious note, please do listen to all of your government's advice. I know it's tough at the moment, not being able to see friends and family. My sister's about to give birth, and I won't be able to see my new niece or nephew, which saddens me. If anybody's lost any loved ones from the coronavirus, my thoughts go out to those of you who have. Look after one another, stay safe, staying in saves lives, remember that, and we'll see you next time. I've been Paul Glover, this has been the Race Department Podcast. Cheerio.